people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
To the mother relay, we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per tweet from Michael Benson, Ryan Garcia's drug test B-Sample results will reportedly take at least a couple of days, possibly until early next week. Garcia's B-Samples were opened today, as scheduled, after he tested positive for Osterin on the day before and the day of the Devin Haney fight, per Dan Rafael. The skeptics think it's suspicious that the samples were opened today, but the results didn't come out today. To that, Dan Rafael stated there are 2 WADA-accredited labs in the United States. You think Ryan's sample goes to the front of the line? They are testing thousands of samples from all sorts of tests, and it takes time to do the actual test and have it analyzed. Unreal how ignorant you all are about testing. Most unfamiliar with this process that have something to say.
They want to defend Ryan.
But what about Ryan is so upright and so outstanding that so many are rushing to his defense?
What?
He's unprofessional. You know he's unprofessional because he missed the contracted weight by 3 pounds, and even if he did pay a penalty for doing that, he wouldn't have had to if he weren't so unprofessional. What about Ryan is so upstanding?
He lied to you guys about having a mental illness, then laughed about it.
So why wouldn't he be lying about this? I don't understand. What is it about Ryan Garcia that has so many people so convinced he's innocent?
Well, some people are just ignorant, and they go by whatever he says.
They don't know any better. His followers on social media, all of those teens and tweens that don't actually follow boxing as closely as I or you, there are those people that are ignorant, and there are others who actually do know better, but they're willing to play along so that they can rub it in.
Rub it in Devin Haney's face that he lost.
Even if that means supporting a cheater, what looks to be a cheater.
Supporting Ryan. Joe Goossen is supporting Ryan Garcia following his failed drug test.
Hall of Fame trainer Joe Goossen, who trained Ryan Garcia before Ryan left him for Derek James. Joe says, I've known Ryan ever since he was a teenager, and I have nothing but great things to say about him because he has a great heart. Goossen told Boxing Scene. He's one of the best fighters I've ever trained. He's got so much talent that it's not even funny. He's got everything. I trained Ryan for 2 years straight, and I never saw anything remotely close to the same galaxy of what is being talked about now. It wasn't even talked about. Ryan would never knowingly do something like that. When he trained with me, he was dedicated. He always worked hard. Nothing about Ryan would lead me even to speculate anything in that direction. No way. Something isn't right. I cannot point the finger at Ryan. None of it makes sense to me. In my wildest dreams.
Then who are you going to point the finger at? Because the fact of the matter is, Osterin was found in his test samples. It had to have come from somewhere.
So are we now going to question the legitimacy of VADA's testing and VADA itself so that Ryan doesn't have to be guilty? That it's VADA who's guilty so that Ryan can be innocent? Is that how we're going to do this? I'm just asking.
It's a legitimate question.
Joe Goossen continued, I cannot conceive of Ryan Garcia purposefully doing anything that would endanger his career in such a way. Goossen guided Garcia to wins against Emmanuel Tagoe and Javier Fortuna, but Garcia couldn't overcome the southpaw Davis. Goossen envisions a promising future for Garcia once he gets back into fight mode. Ryan will never lose to a right-hander, said Goossen. He's going to be great at 147 because he won't have to kill himself to make weight. He's tall and has a big frame. It's amazing and almost frightening to see him hit the bags and hit people. He's one of the fastest, the smartest,
and he's still in the hot seat.
At least momentarily. They've cracked open the B-Sample, and when the test results come back, I expect that you're going to find the same things in the B-Sample that they found in the A-Sample, because that's how this usually goes.
It's not even about Ryan.
That's how this usually goes. But what's unique unto Ryan is I see so many people trying to assert his innocence, going as far as questioning the legitimacy of VADA's testing. So, should no one use them now?
So that Ryan can be innocent, should we view VADA as being guilty?
How many fighters in the last 5 years or so, as the sport of boxing has ramped up its anti-doping efforts, how many boxers have tested positive for banned substances?
This is the first time I've seen a fighter in that situation try to implicate the anti-doping agency itself.
And his fans along with him, if this damages their reputation, they could file suit against Ryan Garcia. I mean, nobody wants to have to hire lawyers, and nobody wants to have to go to court. But if you keep trying to put this on them,
Something's gotta give.
Ryan's just a stupid kid saying stupid things. My honest opinion is he's doping like a lot of fighters are doping. The reason Joe Goossen is defending him?
Joe Goossen knows a lot of fighters are doping too.
Wait, what?
He knows a lot of fighters are doping, so when he sees that one among them is being pigeonholed for it, he doesn't think it's fair.
That may be a little bit difficult for you guys to wrap your minds around. It's a thought experiment that what if there are more fighters in the sport doping than anyone realizes? The people in boxing know it. They just pretend like they don't. Plausible deniability.
Well, I didn't knowingly take a banned substance. I didn't know.
They say that because there's an efficacy issue for all the parties involved and all those who are aware that doping is more widespread than the audience realizes. If you're letting these fighters get out there and you're letting them fight each other under those circumstances, it poses a gross liability issue. So you pretend like you don't know nothing and everybody plays along.
So that nobody's responsible.
It's all an act. And that's a thought I often entertain. A thought experiment.
That doesn't mean it's true.
Just bouncing ideas around because anti-doping testing has become more prevalent in the sport. More and more fighters are testing positive, which paints a picture that it's more widespread than people realized, and Ryan is just one of the dumb ones that got caught.
Which makes arguing his innocence a redundancy, that he is no more innocent than Povetkin was when he tested positive for banned substances, or Jarrell Miller,
Lucas Brown, Luis Ortiz. It's a long fucking list.
What's your point?
It looks like he was doping. That's what it looks like. Looks like he was doping like a lot of other guys are doping. So stop being naive.
He cheated.
Well, he's not the only one, but he cheated. He wasn't the first, and he won't be the last, but we're not talking about every other situation. We're talking about his.
So don't seek refuge in
The
that.
simplest explanation is usually the right one, and the simplest explanation is he was doping.
Could be as simple as that.
And heavyweight news as it pertains to this past weekend's fight, a report claims that more than 20 million people watched illegal streams of Usyk versus Fury, which is expected. As more and more pay-per-views are being pumped out, more and more piracy is sure to follow. The Daily Mail has reported that the undisputed heavyweight championship clash between Usyk and Fury was watched by at least 20 million people using illegal streams. That equates to 95 million euros in lost revenue for the broadcasters, says the Daily Mail. The May 18th showdown, which was won by Usyk on points after 12 thrilling rounds, was staged in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and represented the first time that all four sanctioning body titles were on the line in one heavyweight fight. The analysis was conducted by Yield Sec for Mailed Sport and claims there is evidence of 2,000 streaming locations across the world, with 18% of those watching illegally.
Piracy is still a problem.
So is it possible, with so many viewing the fight illegally, to still be able to turn over a profit? And believe it or not, it is. It's still possible, even with that many illegal streams, for you to make money from a pay-per-view.
How?
Because of how many platforms were distributing the pay-per-view. In the United Kingdom, all the major platforms were distributing the pay-per-view. Sky Sports, TNT, DAZN, and ESPN here in America, and I don't even think those were the only ones.
There are still outliers like pay-per-view.com, conventional cable and satellite.
And was the fight billed as a pay-per-view in every single market that DAZN caters to? Because they cater to a lot of markets. Was the fight made available to some of those markets as part of the subscription, or was it a pay-per-view across the board? There's more data that needs to be tabulated to really get a fix on how well it did or how well it didn't do. But if the question is, Can you turn over a profit on a pay-per-view when there's that much piracy? Yeah, you can. It's still possible.
There was a lot of piracy for Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia, but at the end of the day, it still sold over 1 million pay-per-view buys, so it was still profitable.
This is actually a more nuanced subject than people realize. At the heart of the matter is the number of pay-per-views that are being put out there.
Oversaturation of the market with box office fights breeds piracy. They go hand in hand.
This past April, you had Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, that's $80. May 4th, you had Canelo versus Munguia, that's $90. May 20th, you had Fury versus Usyk, that was $70. June 1st, you have Queensberry versus Matchroom, that's another $70. June 15th, you have Tank versus Martin, $75, which comes to a grand total of $384 in just about 3 months' time. That's what you would have to pay to see all of those fights.
And not everybody has it.
The disposable income to shell out for that many cards that often when they're all bunched up together like that.
It breeds piracy, even when the cards are very good.
Though it's not all doom and gloom, His Excellency Turki Alalshikh posted the internet metrics for the Fury versus Usyk fight, saying exceptional global reach.
Internet metrics?
For the laymen who don't get it, veteran boxing scribe Abraham Gonzalez said, for those that don't understand, this turns into money when it comes to ad sponsors, etc. Those who may want to be associated with such an event that's getting that much attention on the internet.
If you're a content creator and you did a live stream for this past weekend's fight, or you talked about it in a weekend recap video, you would have seen an uptick in views. I know I did.
An uptick in views means an uptick in how many ads are played during your video and what those ads are worth, because the ads aren't always worth the same money at all times of the year. Like I said, this is a more nuanced conversation than people realize.
But it's not all doom and gloom. Yes, there's piracy. There's more piracy in this era of boxing than there was in any era before it. But it's still possible to turn over a profit.
Because you're not just pulling from a domestic market anymore, not just one market or two markets. You're not just pulling from the American audience or the British one. This is a global stage we're talking about.
So what do you think the pay-per-view buys are?
That number will be quite difficult to ascertain because, as stated, there were several distributors for the pay-per-view. There was Sky, there was TNT, there was DAZN, and ESPN here in America. I'm sure the cable and satellite companies carried it as well.
It's not like before.
Where it all just boiled down to either HBO or Showtime. The situation these days is a lot more nuanced, as streaming platforms are all the rage and the primary distributor for a sporting event. Some skepticism from resident Butterball, Gervonta Davis, who said he being Turki Alalshikh, paid a bunch of celebrities to come to the show, throw out a fake number of the views, etc. He's trying to build his name in the sport.
Is he shading His Excellency?
He must still think that Al Heyman and his PBC are somehow in the running as the most powerful forces in the sport of boxing, when even in the American market, the American domestic market, they are struggling to keep up with the Joneses when you compare the number of cards they've done compared to Golden Boy, compared to Top Rank, compared to Matchroom, which was recently valued as the most valuable promotional company in all of boxing. Gervonta Davis must be under the impression that this is somehow a contest between the people on his side of the street and everybody else.
It's not.
There is such a thing as projecting. Bringing up the would-be inadequacies of someone else when all the while you're talking about yourself. You think he's lying about these numbers. You think Turki Alalshikh is the kind of person that has to lie about metrics.
Lie about global reach. Do you understand who these people are and who they're in bed with?
These are billionaires who have a lot more going on than just what they're doing in boxing. Boxing is more of a pet project for them.
They've got a lot more going on than just that.
And what have you got going on? A fight with a guy that nobody knows.
It'll be a far cry from the numbers that you did with Ryan Garcia.
And what has the PBC got going on? We are 5. Going into 6 months into this year, and all they've done so far are 2 shows. Just 2. Both pay-per-views. Compare their schedule this year to last year, and the year before that, and the year before that. The PBC used to do a lot more shows than what they've been doing this year. It's because the well is drying up.
I don't expect him to understand that, and if he does, I don't expect him to admit it.
You think that's good for a promotional outfit? In this industry, that you've only done 2 shows over the course of 5 months.
Both behind a paywall.
At a time where piracy is at an all-time high. What do you think Zoo vs. Fundora brought in at the box office? You think that shattered records? Do you think you're about to? With Frank fucking Martin.
I almost couldn't believe my eyes when I saw that Gervonta Davis was attempting to shade His Excellency, who's working with pretty much every major player in the sport, including his boss, including Al Heyman to some degree, because he's giving several of Al Heyman's fighters fight dates that Al couldn't give them himself.
Did you forget who's fighting on that August show? A good number of those fighters are PBC fighters. Rayo Valenzuela, Isaac Cruz, David Morrell, Tim Zhu.
Some that were.
Yeah, Andy Ruiz used to be a PBC fighter. I'm not so sure he's going to stay a PBC fighter moving forward. If he takes care of business in August with Jarrell Miller, I'm pretty sure he's going to be relying on His Excellency to do his fights moving forward, not Al Heyman.
This kid's too stupid for his own good.
In a very general sense, this kid don't know how dumb he
But
is.
he needs to take his phone.
That you think a billionaire who rubs elbows with other billionaires needs to lie about viewing metrics. He needs to lie about numbers. No, maybe the people at the PBC, in reference to your pay-per-views, most of them, maybe they need to lie about viewing figures. Maybe they need to lie about metrics.
I think they have been.
Let's get it straight. You only ever sold over 1 million pay-per-view buys once, and that was with Ryan Garcia. The rest of the time, your pay-per-views don't even do 500,000, let alone 1 million. The rest of the time, your pay-per-views seem to hover at or around 200,000 buys, and I'm pretty sure they're exaggerating about those numbers.
They have been.
But you did over 1 million with Ryan in your last fight. And you think you're gonna do that with everybody, anybody. You think you're gonna do that with Frank Martin next month. Is he projecting? Of course he's projecting. Of course Gervonta Davis would accuse someone of exaggerating about the viewing figures for a show when that's what his people have been doing this whole time.
He's projecting.
Like when they used to say that Eddie Hearn fucked off $1 billion or $2 billion or whatever it was, that Matchroom in America was an abject failure. You guys are really talking about yourselves and all the Waddle and Reed money you fucked off. $500 million in just 3 years.
All gone.
You say that Matchroom in America is an abject failure when Matchroom in America is doing more shows in America now than you are.
They're projecting.
How many major networks in America have the PBC been kicked off of? NBC, Fox, Showtime?
Seems like an abject failure.
You're on Amazon now, and Amazon is a pretty big platform, but you know they haven't announced any other shows beyond the June show with Gervonta. I mean, what do you have going on in July? What do you have going on in August? So many of your fighters are all tied up in the Matchroom show in August. What are you guys doing in August? No, a little shit stain like Gervonta Davis can't see the forest through the trees.
Made a little bit of money with Ryan Garcia, and now you think that every time you get out there with just anybody, you're gonna make that same money. That's not how pay-per-views work.
I really do wonder what Gervonta Davis is going to do if the PBC is bought out or if they just go under, because they might.
It's the July schedule. What do you got going on? August.
Time will tell the story. It always does.